A humble Texas mechanic builds a groundbreaking wheelchair for a billionaire's daughter. But what happens next will touch your heart. Like, share, and subscribe. Now let's get started. Ryan Cooper had lived his whole life on the outskirts of Austin, Texas, fixing engines and machines like they were puzzles only he could solve. His garage was small, cluttered, and always filled with the smell of metal and warm oil. People in town trusted him because he didn't care about money. He cared about doing things right. That morning he was tightening the bolts on an old Ford truck when he heard a soft engine hum, different from the usual ranch trucks and dusty pickups. It was smoother, heavier, expensive, a sound that didn't belong in his simple world. Ryan wiped his hands on a rag and stepped outside just as a sleek black SUV rolled to a gentle stop. The windows were tinted, the paint glossy enough to reflect the sun like a mirror. For a moment, he wondered if it was lost. Visitors like this didn't come to his garage unless something unusual was happening. The passenger door opened, and out stepped a woman dressed sharply in a navy blue suit, carrying a leather tablet case, and wearing the kind of confidence that came from working with powerful people. She looked around as if assessing the place, then gave a polite nod. "Ryan Cooper?" she asked, her tone professional but not cold. When he nodded, she introduced herself as Grace Williams, personal assistant to billionaire entrepreneur Edward Williams. Ryan had heard the name before. Everyone had. Edward was the kind of man who built companies from nothing and turned them into empires. Ryan immediately wondered why someone of that level needed a mechanic like him. Grace explained that they had seen videos online of Ryan modifying mobility scooters and reconstructing equipment for disabled veterans in the area. Ryan listened carefully as Grace continued, telling him that Edward had a daughter, 19-year-old Ava Williams, who had been paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident the previous year. She had tried several wheelchairs, lightweight ones, electric ones, custom ones, but none of them provided comfort or stability. Edward had heard Ryan was someone who built with heart and creativity, not just mechanical skill. Ryan felt a weight settle in his chest. He wasn't used to being praised like that, and he wasn't used to requests this big. Grace asked if he would be willing to meet Ava. Ryan hesitated only a moment before agreeing. The garage suddenly felt too small, too simple for visitors like them. As Grace guided him to the back of the SUV, the door opened smoothly, revealing Ava sitting quietly in her wheelchair. She was delicate-looking but not weak. Her eyes held a depth that spoke of struggle, pain, and a strength she didn't realize she carried. Her long, dark hair was pulled into a loose ponytail, and she wore a soft gray sweater that contrasted with the cold metal of her chair. Ryan approached slowly, not wanting to make her uncomfortable. Ava gave him a small, polite smile, but her eyes were guarded, like someone who had been disappointed too many times. Grace introduced them, and for a moment they simply looked at each other. Ryan seeing her courage, Ava noticing his sincerity. He didn't talk to her like she was fragile. Instead, he asked what she wanted, not what she lacked. Ava explained how every wheelchair she tried hurt her back or made long movements exhausting. She missed independence. She missed being able to explore, move freely, and feel safe all at once. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but she didn't hide the frustration she felt. Ryan listened without interrupting, absorbing every detail, not as a mechanic, but as someone who genuinely wanted to understand her world. When she finished, he nodded slowly, already thinking through designs in his mind. Standing there in the Texas sun, Ryan felt something shift inside him. He didn't know why a billionaire trusted a small-town mechanic, but he knew he couldn't refuse. Ava didn't just need a machine. She needed someone who believed she deserved better. For the first time in months, she felt like someone wasn't pitying her but partnering with her. Grace watched silently, noticing Ava's expression soften for the first time in a long while. It was subtle, just a small lift at the corner of her mouth, a hint of hope. Ryan promised he would build her a wheelchair like nothing she had ever seen, one that would be light, strong, stable, and made specifically for her body and needs. Ava looked down for a moment, her throat tightening. No doctor, engineer, or specialist had ever spoken with such personal commitment. She whispered a quiet thank you, and it wasn't polite. It was real, fragile, and filled with emotion she had been carrying alone. After inspecting her current chair, Ryan asked a few more questions about pain, points, posture, fatigue, terrain. She wanted to move on and what made her feel safe. Ava answered every question with surprising honesty, as if she sensed he truly cared. He didn't rush her, he didn't talk over her. He simply listened, absorbing her experiences like instructions he needed to follow carefully. In that moment, Ava's heart warmed slightly. For the first time since the accident, she felt like someone truly understood. When Grace helped Ava back into the SUV, Ryan promised he would begin designing. Immediately, Ava looked through the open window at him, and their eyes met once more. Something passed between them, trust, gratitude, and an unspoken understanding that this project was more than mechanics. It was a chance at a new beginning. As the SUV pulled away, Ryan took a deep breath and walked back into his garage with renewed purpose. He didn't know how long it would take, but he knew one thing: he would not fail her. Ryan returned to his garage with Ava's voice echoing in his mind, her words replaying like instructions he couldn't ignore. He cleared off an entire workbench, pushing old parts aside to make room for sketches and metal frames. The project wasn't just another repair job, it was a mission. He began studying different wheelchair designs, circling weaknesses, marking improvements, and imagining features Ava didn't even know she could have. The garage smelled of warm steel and buzzing electricity as he welded the first prototype frame. Sparks flew like tiny stars, illuminating his determined expression in the dim light. Every morning, Ryan woke before sunrise, fueled by a purpose he had never felt so strongly. He gathered carbon fiber sheets, shock absorbers, lightweight alloy bars, and small electric components he custom-ordered from engineering suppliers across the country. The mechanics in town teased him, asking if he was building a rocket. Ryan only smiled, keeping the true meaning of his work close to his heart. He knew Ava deserved a chair that didn't just function. It needed to protect her, empower her, and move with her like an extension of her body. A week later, Grace drove Ava to the garage for her first progress visit. Ava entered slowly, her hands resting lightly on her wheels, unsure of what to expect. The garage was cluttered yet warm, filled with shelves of tools and the faint hum of a fan. Ryan greeted her with a smile, then pointed to a prototype frame resting on a stand. It wasn't complete, but it already looked unlike any wheelchair she'd seen. Sleek angles, curved support bars, and lightweight materials made it appear almost futuristic. Ava's eyes widened, her breath catching with surprise. Ryan explained each part carefully, speaking directly to Ava, not to Grace or anyone else. He described how the carbon fiber frame would reduce weight while increasing durability. He showed her a suspension system that could absorb shock so her back wouldn't suffer on uneven ground. He shared his idea for adjustable seating so she could shift posture during long hours without discomfort. Ava listened with growing fascination, her usual guarded expression softening. She felt seen, heard, like someone had finally interpreted her needs without her begging for help. As days passed, Ava visited more often, sometimes staying for hours. While Ryan worked, she would sit nearby, watching him cut metal, program components, or test motors. The steady rhythm of his tools became strangely comforting. Between tasks, he asked her questions about her daily life, her pain, her challenges, and her dreams. Ava answered hesitantly at first, but the more she spoke, the lighter she felt. Ryan never treated her like she was broken. He never winced or behaved awkwardly. He simply listened with a sincerity she wasn't used to. One afternoon, as Ryan tightened bolts on the wheel assembly, Ava shared memories of hiking trails in Colorado and running across fields during her freshman year of college. She told him how she used to love photography and how she sometimes still dreamed of walking again. Ryan paused his work, looked at her gently and said, "You didn't lose your future. You just need a new path to reach it." His words weren't dramatic, but they struck deeply, settling into her heart like something she had been waiting to hear for months. Meanwhile, Edward Williams kept a close watch from a distance. His daughter's accident had carved a permanent worry line across his forehead. Seeing Ava smile, even a little, felt like witnessing sunlight after a storm. Although he was a billionaire who could afford the best equipment in the world, he knew money couldn't buy what Ryan was building. This wasn't technology. This was personal. This was hope. Edward approved every part Ryan requested, sparing no expense, yet Ryan continued to work with the humility of a man repairing a simple tractor rather than crafting a breakthrough device. The more Ava visited, the more Ryan found himself anticipating her arrival. He'd catch himself glancing at the road, listening for the familiar SUV engine. Her presence brought warmth to the garage, a gentle balance to the fierce focus he poured into the work. She would sometimes bring coffee, other times just conversation. One day she asked him how he learned to fix machines with such heart. Ryan smiled sadly and told her about his father, a Vietnam veteran whose old wheelchair never fit right, causing him lifelong pain. Ryan had modified it when he was 13. It was the first time he felt useful. Ava listened quietly, feeling the layers of their worlds connect. Ryan's past pain and her present struggle seemed to meet in the space between them. She realized he wasn't just building a wheelchair, he was healing something inside himself too. That understanding created a softness in her chest she hadn't felt in a long time. She began opening up more, sharing fears she never voiced to doctors or therapists. She admitted how she hated feeling helpless, how she feared people saw her differently now. Ryan looked at her firmly and said, "I don't see a wheelchair. I see a fighter." By the third week, the wheelchair was nearly complete. Ryan added final touches, a voice command braking system, a cooling cushion for long days outside, a hidden security feature, and a custom paint finish Ava chose, midnight silver with a thin blue streak along the frame. When she saw the color gleam under the garage lights, she whispered, "It feels like me." Those 4 words filled Ryan with pride he couldn't explain. It made every sleepless night worth it. Before the final test, Ryan adjusted the seat height, handlebars, and footrest positions using measurements he had taken during Ava's visits. He double-checked the wiring, tightened the brakes, and polished the frame until it shone. Ava watched him with admiration, realizing how much care he poured into every inch of the machine. She couldn't remember the last time someone dedicated themselves so deeply to helping her, not out of duty but out of compassion. As Ava prepared to try the chair soon, she felt nerves tightening in her stomach. What if it didn't work? What if she couldn't handle it? Ryan sensed her fear and gently reassured her that he had built this chair for her and only her. She wasn't testing a product. She was stepping into her freedom. His confidence settled her heart. She nodded slowly, breathing in the warm Texas air as she whispered, "I'm ready." The morning of the first test arrived with a gentle Texas breeze drifting across them. Open fields near Ryan's garage. Ava sat quietly in the SUV, her hands clasped. Together, heart beating faster than she wished. Grace opened the door, offering a reassuring smile, but Ava felt a rush of nerves. Months of fear, frustration, and hope all collided inside her chest. When she finally saw the finished wheelchair glistening in the sunlight, she froze. It looked powerful, elegant, and unlike anything built before. Ryan stood beside it, wiping oil from his hands, his expression warm and encouraging. As Ava approached the chair, the soft whir of its stabilizers hummed faintly, almost like a breath waiting to be released. Ryan explained the final features calmly, sensing her anxiety. He described how the sensors adjusted to movement and how the shock-absorbing wheels allowed smooth travel over grass, dirt, or pavement. He reassured her that the chair would respond gently to every command. Ava nodded slowly, absorbing each word, her hands trembling slightly. This wasn't just a machine, this was her second chance at life. Ryan lowered himself to her level and told her he believed in her. With Grace's light support, Ava lifted herself into the new chair. The seat molded to her form immediately, the cushioning, soft yet firm. She rested her hands on the sleek carbon bars, feeling the smoothness of the finish. It fit her perfectly, like it had been waiting for her. Ryan watched her carefully, ready to assist but refusing to. However, he wanted her to feel ownership, not dependency. When Ava gave him a small nod, he activated the main system. A soft chime sounded, and Ava felt a light vibration under her palms, steady, secure, promising. Ava took her first movement slowly. Her fingertips brushed the control ring, and the chair glided forward with surprising grace. The world opened before her, no resistance, no pain, no hesitation. She rolled across the concrete floor, then onto the gravel driveway. The stabilizers adjusted instantly, absorbing every tiny bump. Her heart swelled with emotion. She pushed forward again, this time faster, moving across the gravel without the jarring shock she had grown used to. Ryan followed quietly behind her, ready to help, but also wanting her to enjoy every second of the moment. When Ava reached the edge of the field, she paused, looking back encouraged her to continue, nodding. Silently, she turned the chair toward the grass and moved forward. The wheels glided effortlessly as though floating. Ava laughed, a real bright laugh she had not heard from herself in over a year. The sound carried across the open field like sunlight. Grace covered her mouth. Overwhelmed, Ryan felt emotion tighten his chest. He looked at Ava, seeing not the girl who had arrived months ago, but a woman rediscovering her strength. Ava spent several minutes exploring the field, moving in gentle circles, then broader ones, testing speed, stability, and balance. Every movement felt liberating. The chair didn't limit her, it followed her lead, responding with precision and ease. When she stopped near the old oak tree, she looked up at the sky, inhaling deeply. For the first time since the accident, she didn't feel small or trapped. She felt powerful. She felt like herself again. The wind brushed her hair gently, and she closed her eyes, cherishing the sensation of autonomy she thought she had lost forever. Meanwhile, Edward Williams arrived quietly, watching from a distance. He had purposely stayed away initially, wanting Ava to have the moment without pressure. When he saw his daughter laughing freely, something inside him cracked open. He approached slowly, his eyes softening with each step. Ava turned and saw him, her expression glowing with pride. Edward's breath hitched. He knelt beside her, touching the armrest with awe. His voice shook as he thanked Ryan, not with the power of a billionaire, but with the humility of a father who had nearly lost his daughter twice, first to the accident, then to despair. Reporters and small news crews arrived. After Edward shared a glimpse of Ava's first ride online, the story spread quickly. People were captivated by the small-town mechanic who built a cutting-edge wheelchair for a billionaire's daughter. But Ryan didn't care about the cameras. He stayed by Ava's side, adjusting minor settings, making sure she felt supported but not smothered. Ava, overwhelmed but proud, spoke with surprising confidence. She explained how Ryan had listened to her needs when no one else had. She told them how this chair gave her freedom, and how freedom was more precious than wealth. As the crowd dispersed, Ava asked Ryan to walk beside her for one last quiet ride before they returned home. The sun was beginning to set, casting warm golden light across the field. She moved slowly, savoring each moment. When they reached the fence, she looked at Ryan with a mix of gratitude and emotion she couldn't fully express. She told him he hadn't just built a machine, he had given her a new life. Ryan felt a lump rise in his throat. He told her she had given him something too. Purpose, pride, and a connection he hadn't expected. Ava returned to the SUV, but before the door closed, she turned back to Ryan. Her voice was soft but steady as she said she wanted to come back, not for adjustments but simply to visit. Ryan felt his heart warm, and he nodded, unable to hide his smile. As the SUV drove away, he stood in the fading sunlight, feeling a strange mixture of completion and beginning. The project was done, but something far more meaningful had started. Ava watched him from the window, holding on to the feeling of freedom and the quiet possibility of something deeper blooming between them.